Hey, it's Meatball.
And Mark.
And this is the Rocker Morning Show on demand from 107.7 RKR.
Greg, you're on with Mark and Meatball.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing great, man.
Awesome.
Well, hey, Greg Lutzka, professional skateboarder with a new documentary about his rise to being one of the best in the world. However, you might know him from the X Games. He has appeared on at least one episode of The Price is Right and crushed his role in the 2006 movie classic Accepted, starring Justin Long. Greg, happy to have you on the Rocker Morning Show today, man.
Thanks for having me.
How did you get involved with the movie Accepted? It's weird that came up because we were literally just talking about that movie yesterday.
Oh, that's like right when I moved to California. I had one of the guys that were on my skateboarding team, Chad Fernandez. He was doing a lot of movies at the time, and they were looking for some extra skaters that were going to be in the film. And he reached out to me, and the stunt director kind of hit me up. And next thing you know, I was on set for 3 weeks working on that movie, and it was a great experience. I got thrown right into it, and I didn't know it was going to be one as big as it is. Next to Jonah Hill and Blake Lively and Lewis Black and Justin Long, they're all amazing actors. But at the time, those guys weren't as big names as they are now.
Right.
Like Jonah Hill's a huge name now, so
Yeah.
it's crazy to kind of rise with them,
Now, were you involved in any of the big stunts? Like, were you in one of the ones where you got to go fly into the pool?
That was Chad Fernandez. Yeah, he was the one that actually went in the pool and got towed in by the bike. I don't know if you see that in the film, but
Yeah.
you can definitely see him flying over the wall and then into the into the pool. Yeah. So no, I didn't do that stunt, but I did some other ones in the film, and it was a lot of fun actually working on that. And it was like straight, pretty much right when I moved to California too, right into Hollywood movies. It was nuts.
Boy, what a start to your career out there in California, man. Well, hey, before we get to the documentary, I wanted to talk, we just had the Olympics. The Paralympics are going on right now. But this is now the second time for the sport to be added, at skateboarding to be added to the Olympics. And I think officially in 2028, when it's in LA, it's going to become a mandatory sport for the Olympics. What does it mean to you as somebody who's been so ingrained in this culture and this sport to see something you love be accepted as a legitimate sport in this massive world stage?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely, it's pretty cool to see. I think skateboarding should have been in the Olympics years ago, but, and I wish it was in the Olympics kind of like in my earlier 20s when I was competing a lot,
Right.
But, it's still really cool to see, and, I followed the whole journey of watching it, and I can't wait for it to be in Los Angeles. I think it's just going to be absolutely amazing. Skateboarding has grown so much over the years, and it's a lot more mainstream than it was when I was a kid growing up. I was one of 5 kids in my high school or middle school that actually skateboarded, so I think it's inspiring a lot of younger kids to skate, and it's really cool to see the Olympics bringing skateboarding in.
Now, did you try out for the Olympic team at all?
I didn't, they were only taking, I think, 2 maybe skaters from each country.
Oh, wow.
So it was a pretty tight cut. Yeah, but some of my very close friends, Nigel Houston and Ryan DeCenzo, Ryan was actually on the Canada team, but
Yeah.
Nigel was on the U.S. team. But yeah, they got in, but it's not an easy event to get into. I know that.
Right. Well, it's awesome to know that it's really never too late to become an Olympian, no matter what sport,
Yeah. No, it's really cool, and I know snowboarding's been in there for years, and Shaun White won a lot of the snowboarding events, so finally we get to have skateboarding in there, so it's pretty cool to see.
Hell yeah. Now let's get into your documentary. It's called One Way Ticket, the story of Greg Lutzka, and this is essentially your life story up to this point, right?
Yeah, it follows my whole career. I mean, from, my whole life, actually, from even as a kid, and then, I just followed my passion for skateboarding. I actually dropped out of high school, moved to Southern California to follow my dream for skateboarding. So that's kind of why it's called One Way Ticket. I didn't have a plan B. It was like I came here to make it happen and not look back. So, and along the way, I got signed with some huge companies, Oakley sunglasses and Rockstar energy drinks and Harley-Davidson motorcycles. And so I started thinking outside the box of just riding for the core brands in skateboarding and really thinking outside of, I could go ride for huge companies that, wanting to get into action sports. And then I took opportunity as it came, and I started, getting in, the Do Tour and, winning 2 times of X Games and, some of these biggest events in the world. And I even won one of the largest prize purses in skateboarding at $160,000. I mean, I just kind of went after it and just wanted to keep progressing on my board and take opportunity as it came to me.
When you talked there for a second that you dropped out of high school and moved to California to do this, you're a Midwest guy. You grew up in Wisconsin. I have to imagine that your parents were a little shocked when you made that decision.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't an easy decision to do. I started getting homeschooled probably at like 15 or 16. I won my first pro contest at a young age. I think I was 16 in Europe.
Okay.
So I was already traveling. I was already coming out here to California. I had some pretty big sponsors at the time. Essentially, I was making more than the teachers, So I think my parents were kind of thinking like, well, I mean, if it doesn't work out, he could always go back and get his GED or whatever, go back to school. But I think, me moving to California and taking that risk of, putting everything on the line and knowing in the back of my head that I didn't have a plan B of like, well, I can just do this, But so I think that just kind of made me want it more, I'm coming here to make it happen, and there's no looking back kind of deal,
Did somebody kind of prompt you to put this together, or was this a personal project that you really wanted to set out and do?
Yeah, by the way, I don't want to inspire anyone to drop out of high school. What I want to do, because I took a risk, and I don't recommend anyone do the same thing that I did. But that's just to show like the passion I had behind wanting to be a pro skateboarder, that I was willing to risk it all.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make this documentary to really inspire others and show the life story of if you put your mind to something, you can make it happen. And it started as a passion project. And then it turned into like a full-blown movie, and we brought in a lot of the other top pros in the industry, and it just, I don't know. I mean, one thing turned into the next, and, it blew up, and then we got some distribution and getting it on Apple TV and Amazon Prime, and now able to show the world this really inspiring story is a really cool thing to me. And, growing up in the Midwest, and I think a lot of people back home are pretty stoked on it because, I went back to my hometown. I did a big premiere in Milwaukee. We sold out the movie theater. We also did a premiere here in California with the Film Festival in Newport Beach. It won Best Action Sports Film Award. And now I have my own my own TV show on Fuel TV called Next Gen. That's about bringing up the next generation of skateboarders.
Yeah.
I have my skateboards now selling at Walmart next to Tony Hawk. So that's called a Learn with Lutzka series that has a QR code so kids can learn how to skate. So a lot of what I'm doing now and a lot of my passion is really inspiring others and really helping out that next generation of skaters and kids to get them to that next level and get them to follow their passion, because you can make a dream a reality.
Yeah, and it's very clear that there's a lot of people in the skating industry that look up to you, because I mean, some of the interviews with these other pro boarders in the show, like these guys are talking about some of the tricks that you invented, some of the creativity that you put into sport, like up until you had done it, nobody had done it. So like, what does it mean when you see your peers saying things like that about you?
Yeah, I was in the film like Chad Muska that I grew up watching as a young kid. So like to have him in my movie was just like unbelievable. And I think a lot of those tricks that were done, when they're talking, it was under pressure. Like I was skating in the Moonloof Money Cup, and they had a best trick contest, and no one's ever done that 270 kickflip to nose blunt. And it's just, I think I just always, for some reason, I just performed really well under pressure. And I probably did that trick. I don't remember, because it was all kind of a blur when you're in those kind of moments. But
right.
It was probably like towards the end of the event when there's probably only like 2 minutes left. You know what I mean? For some reason, that's how that always worked out for me. Like right at the end of when there's like minimal time, I would land some of those crazy tricks. So. Yeah. When the pressure was on, I guess I just knew how to throw it down,
You'll remember this because you're actually...
As crazy as that sounds.
Yeah, right. I know you'll remember this because you're 10 days older than me. But there was a special time, especially in the early 2000s. And, real quick, I feel like, sports guys were huge, especially during those, the prime time of MTV, those years. And I feel like when skateboarders and, those extreme sports were big, they were embedded in the pop culture. And I'm curious if you feel like, as far as pop culture is concerned, if skateboarding's kind of taken a back seat in the past few years to other things, or is it still at the level it was back then, but maybe just a little bit less exposed to the public.
I think back then they just had those crazy TV shows. You know, Bam Margera had his own show.
Right.
Rob Dyrdek had his show with, you know, Robin Big, and then Sheckler had his with, I think Life of Ryan it was called at the time. And I think that's why skateboarding was exposed so much, or people felt like it was, because it was all over MTV, you know. And I think nowadays MTV has a lot of the dating shows or the drama. Not as much action sports, but you know, skateboarding has just been growing over the years. You know, it's just getting bigger and bigger. Like you said earlier, like, you know, now it's in the Olympics. So I don't think it ever took a backseat, and I think the level of skateboarding has just been it's higher now than it's ever been. Basically, you know, like these tricks that these guys are doing that are in the Olympics are absolutely phenomenal stuff that I can't even, you know, really imagine doing. So it's nothing but it's been progressing over the years and taking things to that next level. I mean, on your board, these guys are taking things to the next level on their board. You know, these newer kids coming up, and it's really amazing to see.
Heck yeah. Well, the documentary is One Way Ticket, the story of Greg Lutzka, and it is out now on Apple TV. Go watch it, Greg. It's great to have you on the show today. Congrats on the documentary. Thanks for all the entertainment as a kid growing up. Loved watching you skate, man.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Greg.